Hello everyone, welcome to Buddha's Zen Wisdom, where we accompany you every day on your journey of reflection and learning. Today, I want to share a story with you, one that I believe holds deep meaning for everyone, regardless of age or background. It takes place in a bustling city, where every day, two elderly beggars come together to beg for alms. One is tall and the other is short. Both are frail, their bodies thin and weathered by time. They have known each other for a while now, after their first encounter while begging on the streets. Over time, their bond grew, and they shared many conversations. One evening, after dinner, the two old beggars sat down and started talking about their lives. The shorter beggar began, "You might be surprised to hear this, but I have 3 sons and 1 daughter. Yet none of them are doing well. They can only take care of themselves." He paused, his eyes looking down as if weighed down by the memories. "When I was at home, they all saw me and my wife as nothing but burdens. Unless there was a good harvest, I had to shamelessly ask them for a bit of food or money for daily expenses, but I never got any pocket money. My wife, not wanting to be looked down upon, started collecting scrap metal and exchanging it for money. Sadly, she passed away from exhaustion after working so hard. I couldn't stay at home anymore, so I came out here to beg for a living." The shorter beggar sighed deeply. "Looking back, I wonder why I had so many children. Was I foolish to have them?" As he spoke, his eyes began to well up with tears, his voice trembling with emotion. The taller beggar, listening intently, asked, "How long have you been out here begging? Have your children never come to find you?" The shorter beggar wiped away his tears and said, "It's been almost 3 years now, and not once have any of them come to see me. I think they hope I'll never come back. When my wife passed away, my daughters-in-law gathered and said, she should have died a long time ago. Can you believe that? Is that something people should say about their own family?" He paused again, as if reflecting on how life had turned out. "Honestly, I'm not unhappy with the way things are now. At least they don't look at me with disdain, and I don't have to endure their judgment. It's peaceful this way. But what I worry about is, when I die, no one will even know." The two beggars fell into a long silence. After a while, the taller beggar spoke up. "Everyone has their own struggles," he said thoughtfully. "My story is different from yours. I came here to beg out of my own choice, and it was for the sake of my youngest son." The shorter beggar was surprised. "You came here to beg for your son?" he asked incredulously. The taller beggar nodded and began to share his story. "I have 3 daughters, and when I was in my 40s, I had a son, the youngest of my children. As you know, in the villages, people always prefer sons. I spoiled him from the start, didn't let him do any labor on the farm, and spent all the money my daughters earned on him. I wanted him to leave the village and make something of himself." The taller beggar's voice grew proud as he continued, "He didn't disappoint me. He got into college, and he was the first person in our village to do so. I was so proud of him. It felt like I had achieved something great in my life." The shorter beggar nodded, impressed. "That's amazing," he said, "a college graduate. That's something to be proud of. What happened after that?" The taller beggar's face grew somber as he continued. "After he graduated, he passed the civil service exam and became a government official. He would come home once a year, send money back to the family, and write letters. The villagers were all so envious of me, and I was proud too. My son was truly making a name for himself." The shorter beggar, who had been listening intently, asked, "So what happened after that? Why are you here now?" The taller beggar sighed, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Well, he changed. For the past 3 years, he hasn't sent any money, hasn't come home, and hasn't even written a letter. The villagers started saying that my son had either gotten into trouble or had died. I was worried, so I went to the city to find him. But when I got there, he had moved. No one knew where he had gone. The shorter beggar's curiosity grew. "So, you came here to beg to look for your son?" "No," the taller beggar replied. "He did come back after 3 years. One day, the weather was nice, and my son returned home driving a fancy car. He even had a woman with him. When he saw me, he said, 'Come with me, I'll take you to live in the city.'" The taller beggar paused for a moment, as if recalling the events with disbelief. "I was reluctant to go. I'd been used to living in the village and didn't know anyone in the city. But he insisted, dragging me into the car. So, I went." He continued, "When I got to his house, it was huge, bigger than the village temple. There were even servants to cook for me. It was like living in a palace. But after just 10 days, my daughter-in-law told me I had to go back to the village. She said my son had been promoted to a director, and I was no longer needed there." The shorter beggar's eyebrows shot up. "No longer needed? What do you mean?" The taller beggar shook his head. "I didn't understand at first, so I asked her what she meant. She told me that my son had only brought me to the city because the organization wanted to see how filial he was before promoting him. Now that he had the position, he didn't need me anymore. He sent me back because that's what he thought was best." The shorter beggar was furious. "That's terrible. If it were me, I would have left right away. It's like they think you're just a tool to help him get ahead." The taller beggar nodded sadly. "I would have gone back if I didn't know the truth. But once I knew, I couldn't. If I went back, the villagers would talk about my son badly. And if it reached his superiors, he might lose his job. So, even though I left his house, I didn't go back to the village. I chose to live here, begging for a living, to avoid bringing shame to my son." The shorter beggar sighed deeply. "My friend, you really did everything for your son, didn't you? But why would you still want to help a son who is so ungrateful?" The taller beggar looked off into the distance, his expression serene. "A parent's love for their children is deep, and sometimes, we do things that others may not understand. I just want him to have a good life, even if it means sacrificing my own dignity." This story is a reflection of the many ways children repay their parents. In today's world, many people fail to properly care for their parents in their old age. Some parents live in neglect, abandoned by their children who only see them as burdens. They might not return home, make any phone calls, or offer any financial help. When parents fall ill, their children may not even show concern. Some even speak harshly to their parents, and when parents are struggling, they do nothing to help, yet the parents are expected to support them. Many parents find themselves financially and emotionally drained, but without the support they deserve. When we reach old age, it's important to have certain safeguards in place. First, it's wise to save money for yourself. Having financial security in your later years can make all the difference. Without money, you may find yourself abandoned by those you helped raise, and you will be left to face your challenges alone. There's no greater misfortune than the neglect of children, especially when you find yourself with nothing in your old age. The famous philosopher Rousseau once said, "Money is a tool that preserves freedom." It is crucial for seniors to have financial independence, to avoid relying too much on children who may not be supportive. This also applies to keeping boundaries with children who rely too much on their parents, especially when they are old enough to be independent. It's essential to protect your own resources and ensure that you can live your life with dignity. Another key part of ensuring a peaceful old age is nurturing relationships with family and neighbors. Even the strongest bonds of family need care and attention. Too often, time can cause relationships to fade, but taking the time to maintain connections, especially with family and neighbors, can provide comfort in difficult times. It's essential to keep the ties strong so that when you need help, you will have someone to turn to. Lastly, health is an invaluable asset as we age. A healthy body is the foundation for a fulfilling life. It's only when we maintain our health that we can continue to care for ourselves, remain independent, and fully enjoy life in our later years. It's vital to prioritize self-care, eat well, exercise, and stay mentally active. Without health, we lose the ability to live freely, and no amount of money can replace it. So, no matter how much we love our children, it's important not to sacrifice everything for them. Do not give them all your resources or time. Take care of yourself. A life of independence, health, and financial security is a peaceful and dignified life. Thank you for taking the time to read this story. I hope it serves as a reminder of the importance of taking care of ourselves and the significance of nurturing relationships throughout our lives. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and share it. Here at Buddha Zen Wisdom, we always strive to offer insights and support to help you lead a fulfilling life, no matter your age. You are never alone.